They gave my sister a villa with champagne, cameras, and cheers. Me, a rejected airline ticket tucked in a used envelope, and a smile that said, "Be grateful." Hi, I'm Naomi, the quiet one, the girl who was always helpful, never seen. But I kept the receipts, every favor, every silence, every time they used my name without asking. And when the world finally heard my voice, it wasn't rage they felt. It was regret, because I didn't just walk away. I bought the one thing they thought they owned. And no, they're not invited. Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments. And if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way I can send you a special greeting. Now, let's start the story together. Sierra got a villa. I got a used airline ticket and a smile like it was a blessing. That was the thought looping in my head as I stood alone at the edge of the white tent, fingers brushing the condensation off my glass of lukewarm Prosecco. The sun hadn't set yet, and everything was aglow. People, plastic cutlery, polished speeches. From a distance, it almost looked like love. I had driven down from Jacksonville that morning, stopping once for coffee and twice to remind myself this wasn't about me. Sierra had finished her real estate program. There was to be a small family gathering, Mom had said. But when I arrived, valet kids were waving luxury SUVs into position, and the guest list had outgrown any reasonable definition of small. Under the tent, tables gleamed with lavender candles and floral menus. There were trays of crab cakes arranged like jewelry and pale pink napkins folded into fans. A jazz quartet was playing too loudly for the conversations happening just beneath it. Mostly praise, thinly veiled competition, and the occasional false laugh. The kind of ambiance curated for social media stories, not family stories. No one noticed when I slipped past the greeting table. My name card sat near the buffet line. Naomi Ellison, no +1 listed. I stood there for a beat too long, trying not to read into it, but my chest tightened anyway. I thought of what Dad used to say when I chose quiet over flair, books over brunches. You're not flashy, Naomi, and that's a strength. But somewhere along the line, that strength had become their favorite reason to overlook me. I found my seat right next to the catering station, close enough to smell the shrimp skewers before they hit the trays. No one made a fuss. My mother brushed past with a plate of lemon bars, air-kissing an aunt who called Sierra the golden hour girl. Dad stood at the front with a glass of rosé, tapping it gently like the toast was spontaneous, not rehearsed. "We're so proud," he began. "Sierra's worked so hard. She's grace and grit. And to celebrate this next chapter, we thought a new place to call home would be the perfect gift." He turned, hand extended to someone in a blazer who handed him a decorative envelope. "Sierra, welcome to your villa in St. Augustine." The tent erupted. Applause, squeals, a scattered chorus of, "Oh my God!" I didn't clap. I didn't blink. I just smiled. The kind of smile you give when the camera isn't on you, but you know someone's watching. Sierra took the envelope, radiant in her soft pink dress, mascara perfect even in the humidity. Her voice trembled as she said, "I don't even have words." But she found them quickly enough for a speech that ended in tears and a round of champagne. Then came my moment. Mom turned, half grinning. And of course, we didn't forget Naomi. She reached into her handbag like she'd planned it all along. From a slim side pocket, she pulled out a plain white envelope, no ribbon, no flair, no anticipation, and placed it into my hand. "We thought this might inspire your next piece," she said with a wink. "You always liked quiet places." The paper inside was thin, a used airline ticket, one way, outdated by 3 months. "It got returned," she added lightly. "Maybe it's a sign to finally go." There was a smattering of chuckles, the kind people give when they're not sure whether something's funny or not. I smiled faintly. That same performance again. Then I stood and excused myself. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. The guest bathroom was smaller than I remembered, clean, quiet. I leaned against the sink and studied my face in the mirror, lipstick fading, hair frizzing near the temples. But the eyes, my eyes, they weren't soft anymore. They were still, like glass on the verge of a crack. I stayed in there for a while, not long enough for anyone to come knocking, just long enough to remember I had a choice, react or remember. So I smoothed my dress, washed my hands twice, and returned to the celebration with a smile I didn't mean. That night, back in the guest bedroom, once mine, now storing mismatched chairs and Sierra's old prom dress, I curled into the blanket and unlocked my phone. The family group chat had 23 unread messages. I scrolled without reading. Then I saw it. A photo of Sierra holding the villa deed. Caption, "Our real gem. So proud of you." Dozens of heart emojis, a parade of compliments. No one tagged me. No one mentioned me. I didn't say anything, just locked the screen and lay back, the room silent except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the low buzz of being erased. There was no outrage, no sobbing, just a kind of weight pressing gently against my ribs. I hadn't expected anything, and still, somehow it hurt. As I closed my eyes, I thought of something a professor once told me in a writing workshop. It's not the grand betrayals that break us. It's the quiet ones, dressed as kindness. And in that moment, surrounded by old cardboard boxes and fading dreams, I finally understood what he meant. The ticket wasn't just expired, it was a reminder of how easily they returned me. I lay there for a while, unable to sleep. The air in my old bedroom was thick and damp, like it was holding its breath with me. Boxes towered around the edges of the room, labeled with things that had nothing to do with me. Sierra's winter coats, holiday decor, Dad's golf memorabilia. A treadmill I didn't recognize stood in the corner like it had better things to do. The ceiling fan creaked on its third speed, but the sweat on the back of my neck said it wasn't working hard enough. I turned to the side and let my hand slip under the pillow, expecting cool sheets, and finding instead the crumpled envelope I hadn't thrown away. I held the ticket up to the light, filtering in through the blinds. One way, Atlanta to Burlington. 3 months expired. My name in faded ink. No seat assigned. I stared at it until the letters blurred into shapes. Then, carefully, I set it on the nightstand and pulled my old laptop from the bottom drawer. The charger was bent at the edge, but it powered on with a soft whir that surprised me. The wallpaper hadn't changed. An old photo from grad school, me standing outside a brick building in Boston, cheeks red from the cold, eyes still hopeful. That girl didn't know what was coming. My folders were still there. One in particular caught my eye. Villa tax swap. I clicked it. A single PDF loaded slowly, line by line like it was reluctant to show itself. But when it did, there it was, clear, legal, undeniable. Owner, Naomi Ellison. It wasn't a contract, just a draft of a deed. But the signature line had been filled, typed neatly, my name right beside my father's. I remembered that day. It was summer, 3 years ago. I'd just come back from grad school and was sleeping in this same room while job hunting. One afternoon, Dad knocked and sat at the edge of my bed, smiling like it was casual. "It's just a temporary thing," he'd said, "for tax reasons. Helps us keep things clean. You won't be liable for anything, I promise." I didn't ask questions. Didn't think I needed to. No one warns you when you're being used. No one says, "Hey, this moment, this one right here, is when we start treating your trust like a tool." I was helping. That's what I told myself then. And now, staring at the date on the document, July 8th, 2016, I realized that Villa had been mine, legally, quietly, until it wasn't. I closed the file, then reopened it, just to be sure. I zoomed in on the header, the font, the notary watermark at the bottom. My hands stayed still, but something in my chest began to unravel, thread by invisible thread. They didn't forget me. They remembered me just fine when it benefited them. I sat with that thought for a long time, not in bitterness, not even in anger, just in clarity, like someone had cleaned a fogged mirror, and for the first time I could see the shape of what had always been there. When I was 7, Sierra got a Barbie dream house with a functioning elevator and a tiny pink chandelier. I got a cardboard puzzle from a gas station, half the pieces missing, edges torn. It builds character, Mom had said. I think now what she meant was, you'll make do. You always do. Maybe that's why they thought I wouldn't notice this time, or that I wouldn't mind, that a part of me was too tired to fight for something I never expected to be mine in the first place. I minimized the document and opened a blank notepad. I typed one line, Villa transferred without formal notice, original cosign in July 2016. Then I saved it as notes-personal. I didn't know what I planned to do with it yet, but writing it down made it real. Like maybe if I started keeping records, I could stop being the only one without a version of the truth. Outside, a breeze knocked something over on the porch. A wind chime tinkled faintly through the open window. I pressed my palms flat against my knees and took a breath. Then I stood and walked over to the boxes, shifting one to make space for my suitcase. I wasn't packing. Not yet. Just clearing room, like the beginning of a decision that hadn't fully arrived. The laptop chimed quietly. A new message. I turned back and clicked it open. It was from Sierra. A selfie. Her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, sunglasses perched on top. Behind her, a black iron gate. The villa's front gate. She held a ring of keys in her hand like a trophy. Caption. Couldn't have done it without Mom and Dad. The emoji glowed too red, too full. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just stared at it until the image burned into the back of my eyelids. I had always known they loved her more clearly, more publicly. What I didn't know, until now, was how deeply they'd relied on my silence to build that love, to fund it, to mask it in paper and praise. They hadn't just favored her. They'd used me to do it. And somehow, that cut cleaner than any insult ever could. A little girl pointed at me and asked if I was the maid, and no one, not a single person, said no. The question didn't sting right away. It landed soft, like dust settling, unnoticed until you breathe it in. I was standing near the entrance, holding a loop of twine someone had handed me to fix the welcome sign, when I heard her voice. "Mommy, is she the maid?" The mother chuckled, light, almost melodic. "No, sweetie, she's just helping." Then she glanced my way and smiled the way strangers do at service staff, kind but distant. Sierra didn't even look up from her flute of Prosecco. She shrugged and turned towards someone asking about her honeymoon. I tied the twine tighter than necessary and adjusted the sign. It was the kind with cursive lettering that tried too hard. Love starts here. The wind kept tipping it. Like it too, couldn't find steady ground. The party had all the polish Sierra adored. Blue and white dresses, trays of tiny star-shaped cheesecakes, monogrammed drink stirrers. Everything filtered through her version of elegance, which meant filtered through Instagram. Guests posed near palm trees wrapped in fairy lights. Laughter floated above the patio like something rehearsed. I arrived exactly on time, which meant I was early. No one offered me a seat. Instead, Vera spotted me from across the room and waved me over, her voice already moving ahead of her steps. "Oh, good, Naomi. The caterers are running late. Could you help shift those chairs outside and maybe make sure the votive candles are lit before sunset? You've always had such a good eye for symmetry." I nodded, said nothing. That had become my role in this family. Agreeable, efficient, barely there. I wasn't on the guest list, not really. I was a feature, like the flower arrangements or the jazz playlist someone forgot to cue. No one asked about my drive. No one asked where I was staying. Sierra floated by me at one point, adjusting her earrings. She mouthed thanks when I moved a drink tray out of her path, then kept walking. By the time appetizers were served, tiny lobster rolls with edible gold flecks, I found myself pressed against the sliding door to the villa's kitchen, watching everything unfold like a play I hadn't auditioned for. Someone complimented the backsplash. "So coastal chic. You guys have such taste." I looked at the tiles. Soft blue waves inlaid in ivory. I remembered picking them. Dad had called me one afternoon 3 years ago, asking if I could stop by the showroom. "We're stuck between 3 samples," he'd said. "You've got an eye for color, and I know Sierra likes that beachy look." No one remembered that now. I left before dessert, just slipped out the side path, sandals in hand, gravel poking the soles of my feet. Vera was in the kitchen, fussing over the trays. She didn't notice me pass, or maybe she did and chose not to say anything. Either way, it was the same outcome. Silence. Back at my apartment, I dropped my keys in the bowl and walked straight to the drawer near the fridge, the one filled with receipts, takeout menus, and things I meant to throw away months ago. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but my hand stopped when it brushed paper, thick, folded, curling at the edges. The airline ticket. I had tucked it there, out of sight after that night with the gift envelope, the one they gave me like a condolence prize. One way, outdated, mockingly clean. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the state lottery app. I hadn't meant to. It was just a flicker of a thought, a what if, dancing at the edge of reason. I held the ticket up to the camera scanner. It beeped. A moment later, the screen blinked to life. "Congratulations, jackpot winner. $150 million. My thumb froze above the glass. No reaction came. Not a scream, not a laugh. Just breathe. Deep, involuntary, like I'd surfaced from underwater and hadn't realized I'd been holding my lungs still for years. I double-checked, triple-checked. It was real. I sat down at the edge of the couch, still holding the phone in one hand and the ticket in the other. My apartment, usually filled with the faint hum of the refrigerator and occasional traffic outside, felt like it had fallen into a vacuum. All the noise I'd swallowed for years, the birthdays missed, the hand-me-down wisdom, the performative toasts, it cracked in that silence. I didn't think of vacations, or sports cars, or diamond rings. I thought of Vera's voicemail earlier that week. "You've always had such a good eye for symmetry," she'd said, and in that moment something inside me clicked into perfect alignment. This silence is going to cost them. They thought I was done, but silence doesn't mean surrender. It means strategy. It was Thanksgiving morning, and my apartment in Asheville smelled faintly of cinnamon oatmeal and cardboard. The boxes were stacked by the kitchen, labeled in my handwriting, scrapbooks, art, utilities, and one labeled, "Don't open yet." That last one held the ticket, of course, the one that had changed everything without needing to say a word. I didn't go home for the holiday. I told Mom I had a work deadline. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. No one called. No one asked if I needed a plate. That used to ache. Now it made space for quiet. I wrapped a scarf around my neck and stepped onto the small balcony. The trees outside were nearly bare. Cold wind carried the sound of a neighbor's television, muffled football commentary bleeding through the bricks. I sipped my tea and watched the steam rise like breath. Inside, my laptop screen glowed with a spreadsheet titled LLCFILESNOVTWOONE. I had spent the last 3 weeks creating a shell corporation, clean, airtight, and detached from anything my family could trace. I opened an encrypted folder where every deed, account statement, and identity document sat nested behind layers of passwords. It felt less like secrecy and more like sovereignty. Later that afternoon, while other people carved turkeys and passed sweet potatoes around polished tables, I signed the closing documents for a beachfront condo in Ponte Vedra. 3 bedrooms, sunlight in every window, tiled floors cool to the touch. The title bore no mention of my name, only the LLC. I called it Brine and Light Holdings. It sounded like something distant, formal, untouchable. I moved in the following week quietly, hired a crew online, paid in full. The rooms were bare when I arrived, no welcome banner, no casserole, just the soft sound of ocean wind pressing against thick glass. I walked through each space slowly, barefoot. Every footstep felt earned. The kitchen had white cabinetry, the kind that whispered peace. I stocked it with pasta, canned beans, lemon tea. On the counter sat a silver kettle, the only item I brought from Asheville. That first night, I slept with the windows cracked open. The ocean didn't roar. It breathed. A few days later, I received a message from Justin, my financial advisor. Subject line: Urgent soft credit pull alert. The message was brief. Naomi, did you authorize a credit inquiry this week from Tidehold LLC? The request came through a brokerage firm based near St. Augustine. The zip code matches your parents' neighborhood. My hand stilled over the keyboard. I reread the email twice, then picked up the phone. No, Justin, I said, my voice steady. I didn't authorize anything. He paused on the other end. Then we have a problem. That phrase used to trigger panic in me. Now it rang like a familiar key turning in a long, locked door. I hung up, opened my encrypted folders, and checked the LLC trail. There it was, an inactive branch I hadn't closed, one I'd originally set up years ago to help with the villa's title, back when I thought they just needed a favor. Sierra's fiancé worked at a real estate startup. His name showed up as the contact on the inquiry request. They hadn't forgotten me. They hadn't left me out. They were still using me. That realization didn't come like a slap. It arrived like a slow sip of something scalding, burning only when you finally swallow. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened a new document and began typing notes. Time, date, firm, cross-references. I took screenshots of everything, uploaded copies to a private drive, changed passwords, added two-factor authentication. They'd never asked, not once, but they'd assumed I'd comply. That was the pattern, wasn't it? Not overt control, not sharp cruelty, just implication, expectation, inheritance. A long history of asking for everything without admitting it. Dad's voice played in my mind from that dinner years ago. You're better off not owning anything. Less stress, more freedom. He'd said it over chicken glazed too heavily with rosemary, laughing like it was fatherly wisdom. Now I heard it for what it was. Permission to erase me. That evening I sat on the condo's balcony, knees drawn to my chest, watching the tide rise over the dark sand. A sailboat drifted on the horizon like punctuation. I whispered to no one. They never stopped using me. They just assumed I'd stay quiet forever. And for a long time, I had. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means I was listening. It means I was preparing. And now? Now it means I'm done playing the part they wrote for me. They called it a compliment. I called it theft. The studio was warmer than I expected. Downtown Jacksonville had a way of pressing heat against glass even in February, and inside, the soft hum of the AC battled with the quiet buzz in my ears. It wasn't nerves, not quite. It was the weight of everything I'd carried in silence, now sitting in the folder on my lap. Nana adjusted her microphone across from me. She gave me a small nod, steady, calm, no need to perform. She didn't believe in sensationalism. That's why I chose her. You ready? She asked. I nodded. I'd been ready for a long time. The red light blinked on. Today's episode is different, Nana said, her voice smooth and measured. It's not just a story. It's a record. My guest isn't here to cry or rage. She's here to explain. Naomi, thank you for being here. Thanks for having me, I replied. My voice didn't shake. Nana leaned back, letting silence fill the space. No small talk. No leading questions. Just space. Rare, generous space. For a woman like me to finally speak. I was listed on the original deed of my parents' villa in St. Augustine, I began. 3 years ago, my dad said they needed a temporary name for tax reasons, said it was a simple legal favor. They'd switch it over soon. I placed a copy of the scanned deed on the table between us. Owner, Naomi Ellison, dated June 2018. Nana didn't interrupt. She simply turned the page, camera catching every word. They transferred it later to my sister Sierra, without informing me. No compensation, no explanation. I tapped another document. The LLC they used to shift ownership? It was mine, still registered under my name. That same LLC was used again, without my consent, to attempt a loan application. The brokerage was tied to Sierra's fiancé. I paused, not for drama, but to let the facts settle. Nina reached for her laptop. For context, she said, this is from Sierra's podcast appearance last fall. She hit play. My sister doesn't like attention. Sierra's voice spilled through the speakers, syrupy and composed. But let's just say she had a windfall. She's not struggling. Nina raised an eyebrow but said nothing. I pulled out the next printout, a screenshot from Sierra's business retreat website, my name, photo, and a fake quote beneath it. Lead sponsor, Naomi Ellison, visionary investor. I didn't give permission, I said plainly. Didn't even know it existed until a client sent me the link. We let the silence sit for a moment. Not awkward, necessary. And then there's this, I added, sliding over a voice recording, clipped from a brunch over a year ago. The audio clicked on. Vera's voice. Naomi's sweet, but she wasn't built for success. Sierra. She still makes mood boards, doesn't she? My father. She's always had her head in the clouds. Sierra. Now you're marketable. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel. It was worse. It was casual. Nina hit pause. You recorded this? I didn't know I had, I said honestly. It was a background recording from a voice memo. I found it by accident. She nodded. And now? Now it's proof. I'm not bitter. I'm just done being rewritten. The episode ended quietly. No dramatic outro music. Just Nina saying, sometimes the quiet ones are the record keepers, and records don't lie. I left the studio without checking my phone, but by the time I got home, it was everywhere. The episode had gone viral within hours. A clip of my voice stating, "They used my silence as cover," was already circulating on Twitter. The comments came fast. Protect Naomi. That's not ambition, that's fraud. Tag her sister, coward. By evening, Sierra had disabled comments on her last 4 posts. Vera's account went private. I didn't post anything, but my inbox filled with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years, an old college friend, a former mentor, a cousin who once said, "You're so quiet, Naomi. It's like you're not even in the room." She messaged, "I see you now. I'm sorry." I responded to none of them, not out of pettiness, just choice. I made tea, sat by the window, and opened a book I hadn't touched in months. The words blurred until the steam from my mug settled and the silence returned. Then I saw it. An envelope in my mailbox. The return address, Real Estate Ethics Board. Inside, a formal notice. Notice of hearing, title dispute, March 15th. They weren't done, but neither was I. They erased me gently, so I ended it clearly. The hearing room didn't look like much. Beige carpet, stackable chairs, a row of bottled waters that no one touched. But the air was heavy, the kind that hangs just before thunder. I sat across from the panel, my hands resting on a manila folder, not clenched, but firm. Sierra walked in first, her heels silent on the carpet, a white blouse too crisp for comfort. Vera followed, face blank, her lips pressed into a practiced line. They didn't look at me. The board introduced themselves, calm, composed, their eyes already scanning the documents we had submitted ahead of time. The original deed, the silent LLC filings, the unauthorized credit pulls, the screenshots, the branding theft. I didn't speak much. I didn't have to. My attorney summarized the timeline. Then he turned to me and I stood. "There's an audio recording," I said quietly, placing my phone on the table. The room fell silent as the speakers clicked on. Vera's voice floated out, casual and unguarded. Naomi's sweet, but she wasn't built for success. Callista's marketable. Sierra's light laugh followed, and then Dad's voice. She's always had her head in the clouds. No one in the room laughed. When the clip ended, I didn't explain it. I simply sat down. The board thanked us, said they would deliberate privately. We left in opposite directions. I didn't look back. 3 days later, a certified envelope arrived. I didn't rush to open it. I made tea first. Lemon, hot, clean. The letter was short. Due to procedural inconsistencies, lack of verified consent, and improper asset designation under corporate law, the villa title has been frozen under legal arbitration. Prior transfer deemed invalid. I read it once, then again. Not with glee, just with a sense of settling, like dust finally choosing where to land. That afternoon, I received an email from Vera. "Hi, Naomi. Given the unusual timing, we were wondering if just for a few weeks we could stay at your beach place in Pontevedra, just until things settle. You know we always admired your taste." I stared at it, let the cursor blink beneath the message. Then I typed, "It's already been promised to someone who saw me first." And I pressed send. No bitterness, no punctuation beyond what was necessary. That evening, I opened the old scrapbook I hadn't touched since the last move. Tucked between pages of clippings and sketches, I found it, the airline ticket, rejected, yellowing. Underneath, in my own handwriting, I never boarded. But I still took off. I slid the page back into place. Later, I stepped out onto the deck of my condo. The wind carried salt and something else, peace maybe. I watched the waves fold into themselves. No crashing, just rhythm, just presence. Inside, my phone buzzed again. A message from the nonprofit I'd quietly funded. One of the scholarship students had written a thank you note. "I'm starting school next month. I didn't think people like you existed." I set the phone down, letting the words settle somewhere deep. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation of space, of breath, of story. Not long after, I locked the beach house for the season. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't post a thing, but in my quiet, sunlit condo, where no one else had keys, I made dinner for one, read until my eyes softened, and let the world go on spinning without explanation. I didn't win, I just left. Eating by the window with a cup of lemon tea in hand, I didn't feel like I had won anything, just that I had finally landed somewhere I chose. Some wounds don't need to be shouted to be heard. Sometimes they just need to be set down, clearly, quietly. I used to think silence meant weakness, but over time, I've learned that calm can be the strongest way to hold on to yourself. Family doesn't always mean understanding, but if you're steady enough, you can still love without shrinking. If this story stirred something in you, I hope you'll share your thoughts. Maybe you, too, have walked through seasons of silence to reclaim your place in a home.